Hey everyone, I'm Sean, one of the co-founders here at Pacific IQ, and today I'm going to have a quick chat with Jennifer Courtney, who is our head of strategy. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. We get together every month just to talk about what's going on in the world of DTC, tactics, technology, wins we're seeing with clients in our portfolio. And so we're making the effort now to broadcast this out there so people can see what's going on inside Pacific IQ and what strategies we're using and what strategies they can expect to see in Ecom IQ, which is our new coaching division of the business. So Jennifer, we've had a few calls on clients today already. So today we're going to get a bit more tactical, which is exciting.
Yeah.
What do you think, for brands that are in that 250K to a million mark, so more or less getting started, what do you think, having a strategy actually means? And why do you think most founders kind of skip that phase?
So, from my point of view, having a strategy, just as a brand and as a founder, is a clear point of view on who you serve, what you stand for, and what you're deliberately not doing. So, I love that part of it. That's kind of specific, but it's this idea of if you truly know what product and who you're developing it for, who you're bringing that product to the world for, then you can really hone in on what the intention of bringing that product into life and selling it online is. So when I think about strategy, I think about the why of what you're doing, but then when you think about a growth strategy from there, it's how you show up in the world and then the tactics that you're doing to get there. So like I always say, like, most people confuse like having a to-do list with a strategy. It's not. A strategy is a true plan for growth. So how are you going to get that product into more hands of consumers and have more people love it and enjoy it and then repeat purchase it? These are all things that a strategy looks to solve, but really it's a plan for growth and how certain activations or levers you're going to pull up along the way are going to impact that overall growth over time.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it's you hit the nail on the head there in the beginning too, where I think product development has to be so intentional. I'm sure you're the same. We see brands that are either extremely well thought out and developed products that are solving a problem for people. And those people generally struggle with the strategy because they're product people. And then you get brand owners that are really good at strategy and DTC marketing, but their product sucks because they've just like picked it off Alibaba. And the reality is you need the fusion of both. You need this product that people want that's ideally novel or unique that allows you to not have as much competition. And then you also need this buttoned up strategy of who do we serve? How do we get there? What are we going to do? And then, yeah, as you say, you get down into the weeds of the tactical, the things. And, what do you think is the difference between the brands that, get stuck at 500,000 or a million and the brands that then go on to, 5, 10, 100 million? Like, what do you think the biggest thing is there that people are not doing that differentiates those people?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I think is they haven't truly understood or identified their customer. And it's not just, women from ages 25 to 35. We have a true profile of who our customer is and why they need our product, how our product fits into their daily life. But when I think about strategy from a founder's point of view, it's really, are you making effort, and is that effort compounding over time versus just effort out and things getting done? So strategy then becomes the thing that you're doing to grow over time. It's making total impact and not just busyness. Not, you can think about all of the things that a founder might get caught up in when building an e-commerce store, being in a million different places, having more products. You need clarity around the things that are going to make impact over time. And I think really having a clear strategy is how you're going to do that. When I think about strategy, I also think about like how, many founders probably get stuck in this idea of like execution, like doing things. If you could 10x your execution and there's no impact over time, like, you have a strategy problem. You're not doing the right tactics that are getting the right results. If you have a clear strategy and you're executing against that strategy, you're going to see compounding results and you're going to see growth over time. So that's just in my mind how I think about the difference between, checking off a to-do list, doing things and executing versus having actual strategy that if you execute against will impact total revenue.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's the difference. And I think the breadth that so many people don't take is they just want to go and do, they want to go and execute, but they forget that step of actually creating the strategy first. And how do you, like, what's the best way to diagnose that? Is it analytics? Like, what's the canary in the coal mine here for brands that, you see and work with as to whether they've got an execution problem or a strategy problem?
Yeah. So I would start with really, like, do you understand your why? And then I would say, do your customers understand the why? So are you communicating that why effectively? Like, you could spin your wheels all day long if it's not being communicated effectively. You're not going to match with the right customers, and they're not going to understand why they need your product and retain and come back for more. But if I were to diagnose, like, internally, a founder having a strategy versus an execution problem, I would say that if if it feels like fog, if you feel like you don't know, if not everyone on the team, if it's you and you alone, or if you have a team, everyone truly understands what direction you're moving in. It feels clear. It feels intentional. Everyone could, chest beat that direction very clearly and communicate it clearly. If it feels like fog, if you don't know what every day is going to bring, if your to-do list is dictated by whoever's the loudest in the day or whatever comes in your inbox, then you don't have a clear strategy and you're not executing against that. You're letting problems become your strategy, and that's not intentional. And
Yeah.
you could so easily drown, right, in everyday needs versus true strategy and growth.
Yeah, so that's so true. And I think, we see this a lot is founders or brands that are just in reactive mode to things that are going wrong rather than proactive mode of, all right, what are we doing to push the needle? What do you think is the biggest blind spot for operators or founders? Is there one thing in particular that you think is the main, choke point for brands?
So I think that here's what I'll say. What I've seen happen a lot is that you have founders or smaller brands bring in people that have successes growing other brands. So they have that great, wonderful success of having a large brand and all of the pieces that they built to build to that larger brand, think that a smaller brand must come out the gate and do everything. And so it's a lot of time, resource investment, money investment to put a whole tech stack together of what a big brand is, versus what I truly believe is the best playbook for growth is to get really clear, really niche of what is working, what is most high impact effort, like effort versus impact, like really focus on the highest impact things that you can do those very, very well. So really master a few things, really, like I always say, like, water the green grass. If you have a small amount of customers and something's working really well for those customers, I would go and then just expand on that rather than try and do everything at once. You don't need to replicate a larger business or a competitor that's doing everything. You need to be very clear on what you do uniquely well and your positioning with those customers, and then really just ride on that. That's enough to grow. And you'll find opportunity as you grow to expand, but pushing it out the gate, almost always I see like a collapse of that, like, strategy, because then you're trying to do too much. You're not doing enough well enough. You haven't mastered it well enough to expand.
Yeah. And you raise a really good point there around focus. And this is something that we've been coaching recently is just really basic 80-20 principles. Like 20% of what you're doing is generating 80% of the revenue.
Mhm.
So all that other time you're spending on other stuff is quite literally wasted. So as you put it, like water the green grass, focus on the customers that matter. In its most simplistic form, it's don't send emails to your entire list. Isolate who your actual customers are, who are heavily engaged, and focus on them. Even from a product development perspective, we recently had a conversation with a brand that's gone from, I think, 1 million to 6 million in about 24 months. She's killing it. But the next question is, what's the next product release? And they're in wellness. And the answer was, well, go and find your VIP customers that have spent the most money with you, that engage with you, and ask them what they want. Like there
Yes.
is opportunity there to find these things from your loyal customers, which is, again, just comes back to focus. The other thing too, I think operators struggle with, and I'm keen to get your take on, is when's the right time to stop doing everything yourself? Because usually, you start a brand, you don't know if it's going to work out. Let's assume there's no VC money or PE money involved. It's just like someone who's got an idea. They create this product. They're doing everything themselves. Is there a tipping point where it makes sense to bring in more team or bring in an agency or whatever it is? Like, what do you think that tipping point is?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest answer is if you can see that there's a constraint on revenue because nothing ships out the door without you doing, you obviously need help. I think everyone, that's pretty like glaringly obvious, I would say.
Yeah.
But really, if like the quality of output is dropping because you are the bottleneck, I think that that's a clear need, right? A signal for a need. My thought here is like when you're bringing on team members or you're thinking of bringing on an agency, my recommendation is always to go specific rather than like a generalist. I think specifically what could impact, like you would like to have a strategy in place that shows what could make the most impact. You hire specifically for that need, and then it'll expand from there. And what's great about having an agency come in is a lot of times they are an expert in a specific thing that you're looking to solve. So you have a problem, they have a solution, they can really get into it quickly and solve that problem for you. That usually makes the most sense. If you're hiring internally, specific roles makes the most sense. I think, as you get bigger, you'll find more general needs, but really like just solving the immediate problem, I think is the best course of action there.
Yeah. And that was my experience on the brand side before starting Pacific IQ, which is actually what led to creating an agency. Was we would go to agencies that did not have specific specialists. So this is in my time as a brand operator. And eventually we were spending so much money with agencies that I was like, hang on a minute, I reckon I can just hire an A+ person for each of these roles internally because we had enough budget. We did that, didn't overload them, and the results were just, full hockey stick. It was ridiculous, the improvement. And that was what underpinned our creation and formation of Pacific IQ. Was like, we need dedicated specialists, which is why, we have people in different seats for each individual thing in DTC. So even into the paid media silos, like the Google media buyer is not the meta media buyer. That's the only way you can get to that excellence, because it's unless you're living and breathing this stuff every day, it's really hard to stay on top of. And I think that's where founders get stuck a bit, because they're like, I've got to do everything myself. I've got to learn, and their desire and their willpower to do it is incredible, but it's just not possible. You can't be a 10 out of 10 email marketer, paid media buyer, CRO person, agentic search person, and create great products and run a company. Like, it's just not possible for one person. So I think you're right. When the constraints appear and the revenue starts to suffer, that's the time. And I think there's also a point in time too where most brands get to where they've actually got a bit of surplus cash, and it's that discipline of, I'm going to reinvest in brand growth and sales versus I'm going to reinvest in potentially inventory or spending it on yourself, those sorts of things. And there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's different there, but I think you're spot on there. Absolutely. When do you think brand becomes the time to invest? Because this is a really tricky one, because it's so hard to quantify, and we're so used to return on ad spend and revenue per email recipient. When do you start spending money on brand development?
So, I mean, I think, well, it's a good question. So you're saying spend money on brand development. I think you'd have to understand if you have great brand positioning already. Like, you can usually identify if there's a need to develop it further when you don't truly know like what space you own in a customer's mind. Like, if you don't know your customers, you don't know where you exist in their life and when they go to you to solve a problem, then you do have kind of a positioning problem already. That would be, and you need to be more intentional about positioning your brand for customers. But if you wanted quantifiable or qualifiable, like evidence of that being a problem, just look at what reviews or feedback you're getting. I would even say like any type of feedback you're getting from customers. Ask your customers, do they truly, can they name specifically what your product does for them and how it fits into their life? And if they can't say the words that you're trying to say is your intention, then there's a disconnect there. So like I always say, like the words that customers use in customer service tickets, in feedback on social media, are literally the words that you should use to describe your brand and your product, because they are echoing back to you how they see you. So if that's misaligned, if you're getting, social feedback, customer service posts that feel completely different than how you see your brand, there's a positioning problem there, and that's the first place that you'll find like evidence of that problem, and how you would probably go directly to, if you have the ability to get more information from those customers, of really understanding how to fix that, and then maybe spending time and investing with experts that can help with that brand positioning.
Yeah.
They're definitely out there. And really get clear that customers know what you do, what products, and what makes you different. Why buy your product versus a competitor, and how that product fits into their daily life.
Yeah. And this is one of the hidden, I think, gold mines and tips and secrets for DTC brands that most aren't doing, is go and review your customer service tickets. Go into Reddit and see what people are saying about your brand and your product. It's a gold mine, and for multiple reasons. Even at the most basic,
Yes.
pure one, go and look at all the most frequently asked questions that your customer service team's answering. Make sure that is prominent in your FAQs on your product page, so people don't need to submit that ticket before they purchase.
Yeah, I would even go a step further, that it should be in the story, right? It should be in how you speak about the product, so you're getting ahead of it. You're answering the questions they're going to have before they have them.
Yeah.
Would be a good tactic there. But yes, I say absolutely. Like the you know thinking about your product and going in and having that wonderful feedback that you already have. I'm saying go to the 1-star reviews.
Yeah.
Look at patterns in language that you're seeing there that people are complaining about there. That right there is where you should focus your effort and understand how you're positioned, or maybe how you have opportunities to improve that positioning. And it's it's the best, you said it, gold mine of access to data that you could ever have. I mean, I say same thing with like social media. It's people are putting it out into the world how they feel about you. If you and even go a step further of collecting data from anyone who's willing. So like even like a post-purchase survey. I love the idea of like asking post-purchase, after someone who's made a purchase, was there anything that almost stopped you from making this purchase? Right?
Yep.
Or were there any hesitations? If getting that information from them is so useful in understanding how you fit in their mind, why they're making the decision to purchase from you, and how you might expand on that further, or better that in the future.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I find myself writing so many emails to brands that I purchase from, just
Mm.
because I get frustrated as a consumer. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, like your checkout is so slow, or hey, there's too much information, or this is missing. And yeah, it's when you're in the DTC world, I think we have a very specific lens that we look at things through, and it's so easy for founders to just not see it, because they get into this like almost self-fulfilling prophecy of reading their 5-star reviews rather than their 1-star reviews to make themselves feel better. But the gold is in the lower end. And I've even seen a brand incentivize their customer service team to convert 1-star reviews to VIP customers. Because if you give those customers the love, like you call them and you say, hey, I saw your negative review, I saw the bad experience that you had. Hey, I'm the founder. Even if it's not you, they don't know. We want to make this right. Let me send you out a replacement. What can we do to help? That conversion, you can go from like brand hater to brand advocate really
Yeah.
fast if you put the effort in.
Yeah, if you think about it, they're taking the time to give you a negative feedback. That's not something that somebody who's, you know,
Yeah.
indifferent about you will do. They have energy, they have engagement, they are fired up enough to leave that negative review. That person wants to love your product, but is mad about something you're doing to piss them off. So
Yeah.
let's convert them. Let's acknowledge their frustration. You acknowledge it, you make a change if it's possible to change, or you at least acknowledge that how that might be frustrating and do what you can do to fix it. And then you're right, that's an opportunity to convert them into a champion, into somebody who could tell the story. I was so mad and now I love
Yeah.
this brand. That's a dinner table story that someone's going to then pass on to other people. I mean, word of mouth is still a thing. But think about if they put it on social, not that that's your intention for doing it, but that really it's just powerful and you have those interactions.
Yeah. And that is the knowledge that your analytics and your data can't give you. Like there are some pretty good social listening tools and CX,
Yeah,
AI driven consolidation tools out there, but sentiment analysis and then getting into the weeds of it is so important. It's at
agree.
scale, every DTC brand's generally doing things pretty well. It's these outside edge things where you can get like a few percentage points here, a few percentage points there from these, let's say non-traditional tactics that I think make up, a large part of how brands grow from, 10 to 100 million. You've really got to get into the weeds of doing everything right and listening to your customers, making sure that everything's on point. Um, I think the next thing is, you know, the conversation we have a lot with brands and, often we argue about is how do you define lifetime value? Everyone will define it differently. Is it 90 days? Is it 12 months? Or is it the actual lifetime of the customer until you decide they've churned? How do you think about it? What do you think is the most useful way to use LTV and how to measure it?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you'd understand a full lifetime is for when they started, right, interacting or engaging, buying from you until the end. But I mean, as we talk about growing or smaller brands, you're not going to have that data. It's just not realistic to have a lot of it.
Mm,
So even just, I mean, I would do an LTV, like I would do a 30, 60, 90.
yeah.
I mean, listen, if, it depends on the product that you're offering, but if they're not coming back in a normal, repeat purchase rate cycle, you can see within those first 30, 60, 90 days that there's an issue there, which is pointing to a bigger problem. So you're probably not using it as your LTV metric, but what you're doing is you're looking at data to see if there's leakage, right? Like if this is not working and that repeat rate is not what is intended to be. But when I think about lifetime value for more legacy brand, of course you'd like to see that like that person is coming back over time. You want to really analyze and engage the breadth of that experience with them.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've had some experience with this. Like, I
Mhm.
think a lot of people or marketers specifically, LTV is kind of it's not a primary metric for them. Everyone's so focused on return on ad spend, conversion rate, AOV, that LTV sometimes gets left behind. But something that we were kind of trying to get across in our last workshop was if you can stretch your LTV and get it up, it gives you more justification to tolerate higher acquisition costs because statistically you're going to make it back, which for brands that hit that band where they're really hitting the ceiling of customer acquisition being profitable, if your LTV's up, it allows you to spend more money to acquire customers sometimes, which is a point
Yeah.
a ceiling that every brand hits at some point. And did you have that experience in your brand side world before you came to the agency side?
Did. So I worked for a brand that had, I'll say it had great retention rates, but not great LTV. So there's like, it's almost like LTV to me is too simplistic. You have to kind of look under the hood, right? So what we would see happen would be, our LTV, let's just use easy numbers. If it's at 100 and our average order value is 50, great, right? That means they're purchasing twice. But if we have these long experience, we're having these long relationships with these customers and they're only purchasing twice and there's a lot of lag in between. We're not converting them again at a normal repeat purchase rate. That's a problem. And that is, where you could look at vanity metrics and think it wasn't a problem, but it truly was. I think, the most important thing for most brands is to get them to make that repeat purchase rate in a normal cycle out the gate. So that second purchase is so important to get right, where they love the product and they purchased again at a normal cycle, I think is the most important thing to get right. Think about all the money you're spending to acquire customers. If you're not able to convert them more than once, that's the metric that I care the most about, especially as you're growing at first, so that you don't have a leaky bucket of people purchasing once and never returning again. And maybe they purchase again in 5 years. That doesn't work really as a growth lever, right? So if we're looking at LTV over a long period of time, it's too long. You have to make sure that you're able to convert them well within a normal, that second purchase is the point that I would look at even more than LTV, honestly.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is and always will be cheaper to sell something a second time to a user or sell them something different than it is to acquire a new customer. And this goes back to that 80-20 thing where people are so often so focused on acquisition, they just forget this retention, repeat purchase world sometimes exists, which is just madness.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And, I know, the brands that you've worked for have been cross-channel. So, how do you think about, and, there's no perfect way, I don't think, to measure it, but like, how do you think about customers that are still with the brand, but they're in another channel? So they go from DTC to Amazon, or they go to like retail. At what point in time does a brand need to start thinking about advertising on their secondary channels?
Yeah, that's tough. And there's no easy, like, one answer. It depends on what the intention is. So, yeah, I've worked with brands who are on a lot of marketplaces that can interrupt a normal D2C process, right? Very, like, I'm an Amazon shopper. I get it. People are going to shop there. What helped is I almost liked to look at the D2C channel in isolation. So are we not then, retaining that consumer to come back? You think about it as the D2C is the unique space for them to have that experience directly with you. So we might, of course, offer products in other channels and that we need to be wherever the customer is. But if we didn't create a great experience on D2C, them not coming back but still wanting our product in other channels almost is something that's needing to be corrected, right? As a total brand, I think if you step outside of my own role, you might see it obviously as total brand growth, total brand win. And I completely understand that. But if I'm not retaining a good amount of my consumers to come and have that experience again on the D2C site, then I'm not serving them the best experience possible. Love that they're getting our product in other ways, but it's my job to ensure that they have the best experience and that experience they want to repeat again.
Yeah. And there's so many levers you can pull there too. You've got exclusive products, you've got loyalty, DTC generally too should always be the highest margin channel because, there's no commission fees as such, etc. So it is worth leaning into, I think. And, you've got some experience there. Like what worked the best to try and keep people on the DTC channel versus, losing them to Amazon or TikTok shop or something like that?
Well, I always see it. Okay, if you're talking marketplaces, they're, of course, shopping on marketplaces usually for convenience. So if you can make, obviously, that D2C experience so easy, so frictionless, that it could almost, as much as we can do, replicate a great, wonderful marketplace experience, that's the ideal. So, really making it an easy process and then making the repeat purchase so easy, it'd be stupid not to, right? If I want to get my product, this is the easy way to do it.
Yeah.
Now with shipping costs and things like that, now there's things that are outside of your control. So I'm not saying this is a blanket statement, but really is if you're making that experience so great, if you're offering, if you are offering unique product offerings if you can, but maybe free gift with purchase or some kind of awareness. Let's say like you're acknowledging that they're going out of their way. They're coming to your website to engage with you as a brand directly. They're giving their first party data to you. These are all wonderful things that they're going out of their way to do. I think acknowledge it, reward it, like, and say those words like, thank you for being a wonderful customer. Acknowledge the effort they're making to take time out of their day to shop with you and make them feel that gratitude. I know that kind of sounds woo woo, but it's like you can really make them feel it. They get a free gift, they have loyalty, like on their third purchase, they're getting something great. These are all like small, tiny reinforcements that over time they will really add up for a customer, and they really will remember the fact that they went out of their way, they shopped with you, and then they came back for more. So I think it's not lost on me that, a lot of buzzwords now are about loyalty and rewards and frequency of purchase, but these are really truly things that if you have the right language of communication and the customers can feel that it makes so much impact over time. They'll remember a great experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's very much about personalization to a certain extent. I recently had an issue where I bought all this new, as you hit 40, you start buying skincare as a male. Probably should have done that a bit earlier. But I had a massive issue where I accidentally subscribed to everything that I purchased. And all of a sudden this package rocked up. I'm like, I don't need this. So I emailed them like, hey guys, like, I know this is my mistake, but I don't need this just yet. And they offered me this incredible deal to keep it, which they didn't need to do. And now I'm like a brand advocate. I'm like, yeah, these guys are great. They responded, they understood, they heard me. And, now I shout their brand from the rooftops. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so important that giving people that feeling, I don't think it's woo. It is woo woo, but it works. I don't see any evidence that it doesn't, right? The
Right.
feelings and how you make your customers feel really matter.
Yeah.
Do you think, I guess it depends what industry you're into though, but at what point does like pricing matter to keep people on DTC versus other channels? Like what's the strategy there?
So I would always say, like, if you take a step back from a brand point of view, you never want pricing to be the reason that somebody does or does not buy your product, right? You never want to be the cheapest in the market. That doesn't make any sense. Your margins are very low. That's not a strategy in itself. So I would start with the product as something that is truly valuable and that the price matches what they would expect to pay for it.
Yeah.
But beyond that, so I believe that pricing is really, really important to get right. So it is important to have the right pricing. But I think if you have a great strategy, a great brand position, you have great products, pricing is not going to be the first, second, or third reason that customers are coming to you and they're willing to pay the value of the product that you're selling.
Yeah.
So that all to say that, especially when you're thinking of D2C, that's a place where people are coming, I always say, like, out of their way. They're taking time out of their day. They're making extra effort to type in a web address or click a link to come to your site. They want your product, right? Like they're excited to get your product. So as long as the value matches the price, I don't think that you should worry as much about like small margins there. I think it should just make sense. And you're going to get that feedback, of course, from customers if it doesn't. If it's too low, then I'll have different types of feedback that would point to that. But I think that as long as it matches the value what the customers expect to pay, I think that you're okay.
Yeah. Because I think the psychology is very well proven too on the association with price being high and quality. And I think a lot of founders get that wrong. They're so concerned that their product's too expensive, when in fact it's the opposite. Often it's too cheap. One, because they could charge more, and we prove that out through testing. And second of all, the higher your product, the higher margin, the more you can spend to acquire customers. Like there's often this, I think, belief of, we've got to be on point price down. Whereas I think for a lot of DTC brands, it's price up, depending on where you want to be in the market. It gives you way
Yeah.
more flexibility on wholesale too. Like we see this all the time. DTC brands maybe running 55% margins direct to consumer. They get a call from Whole Foods, and the numbers just don't make sense. They can't deliver the wholesale
Yeah.
rate that the retailer needs to purchase it at to get in the door. That's a foundational level thing, which often for brands that we're coaching, we do on day zero. It's like, what are the margins? Are you ready? Because
Yes.
you can't you can't all of a sudden just raise your price 30% to accommodate wholesale. It just doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different, you know, and if you're selling products that are just by nature lower in cost, like what does a great bundle look like, right? To get them to a threshold that makes sense, that they're getting a value, you know, that box they're getting is including a number of products that gets them to a value that makes sense with price. So it's not as cut and dry as just saying, well, my product is, you know, a $10 product. Well, let's get them a bundle that feels valuable, that they would love to have, that feels like the value is there. They're getting some great product for a price that they're excited to pay because it's worth it to them.
Where do you think brands should start on that? You know, there's if it's a consumable item that's refillable, you've got bundles, subscriptions, upsells. You know, do you do them all on day one? What's your, you know, generally prescribed way to roll
Yeah.
those things out?
So I would say they're all great, right? And they all have unique needs. I love a bundle first. So like if I were to come and advise a brand on what to start on, I would start with a bundle. That's clear for a consumer to understand what they're getting. Like most of us love this idea of, you know, not just getting one thing, getting many things that work well together. I'm generalizing because this is all different, but if I'm thinking of most products, that makes the most sense to me. Because you're not only getting this hero product you're coming to the site for, but you're also getting complementary or similar items that they were very excited to get. So getting more than one thing makes the most sense, I think, out the gate. As you start to grow, it makes the most sense then to then add on subscription, because then that's repeatable, dependable. Under like then that person is setting it, forgetting it for the customer, but then you're also able to scale. Like operations is great because then you know what to expect going forward. And as long as you're offering a product that is renewable at that rate that they're subscribing to, they'll stay with you because they love the product and that's the easiest for them.
Yeah.
Better if you can get them on a bundle plus subscription, and now you really are now understanding what over time that compounding amount will look like.
Yeah. And that goes back to the unboxing, to another
Yeah.
position of DTC that's overlooked. But unboxing, you know, something with 3 items in it is way more exciting than just one. You know, it goes end to end. It's
I
often,
always say treat every customer like they're an influencer you're trying to impress. Everyone loves that experience. That's why it does so well on social media. You want to feel like you're getting a gift, right? Like that experience of unboxing truly is exciting.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's such a like obvious strategy that no one does, you know. Make
Yeah.
sure that you're enabling people to share what they're experiencing. Make it memorable, make it colorful, you know.
Yeah, and everyone loves getting free things. So bundles are a great way to hide free gifts, right? Not hide, include free gifts in the overall value of what they're ordering in a great way. Everyone loves to feel like they got something for free, um, or they're being, you know, again, honored, gratitude, value, like that feeling of them get that the brand giving you something is a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Changing gears a bit into common mistakes. So we've talked about like things people can do, positive things. Like what's the most expensive strategic mistake that you think brands can make?
So I think one of them is definitely acting as if they're a big brand. So they're looking at their competitors and they're seeing wherever their competitors are and trying to be everywhere at once.
Yep.
Is definitely a common mistake. I think if especially if you're starting out and maybe you have larger competitors, I think that your superpower is your small size, like your ability to go niche and do things very well. So isolate like one or two channels that you can win at versus your competitor, how where you can operate in a unique way that your competitor can't because they're spread too thin, or maybe they can't provide the level of service that you can provide because you are small. Like really think about what your superpowers are compared to the competition and play that up. And then don't scale too fast, right? Don't put your product in too many places. I think it's better to win on 2 channels than to be in 10 any day of the week. And then think about what channels you are and how it aligns with your product. So if you have a product that requires a lot of information, education in order to get, social media, can work for you, but social media is impulse buying. Social media is quick. I understand it. I see an image and I buy it. That might not be the right channel for you to start on. You really need a channel that people can get deep and can truly understand ingredients or things about a product first before purchasing it. Otherwise, you'll be spending a lot of money to be on channels that don't align with how the product fits in that customer's life. And what you'll have is not a lot of repeat purchases, and it will just drain you, right? You'll spend a lot of money to get those customers and not retain them. It won't work for you in the right way. So find channels where you can retain your customers or where you can be that makes the most sense and they come back for more, and really do that well, master that well before you expand beyond that.
Yeah, incredible. And what do you think founders think is a strategy problem, but is actually something else?
Um, so I think a lot of them probably think output. Like if they think that we should just get more people, execute more, do more things. We're not doing enough things. They think is it really that just means that you're not doing the right things. So if you're doing the right things that make the most impact, you're going to see compounding impact over time. If you're doing a lot of things and you don't have a clear strategy, then you're just going to spin your wheels, do more work, and not see the impact of that over time. And then when I think about it from like a product perspective or like just analytics in an e-commerce site, I mean, you're going to see it in retention. You're going to see customers loving your product and coming back for more and giving you great feedback that is right there in front of you, what's happening and what's working. Find what's working, do more of that. Find what's not working, fix it. Like really get that right before you go and expand into a million areas or add more products. I think just do what you know and you can do well first and then expand from there.
Yeah, it's like the shiny object syndrome, which has different, flavors, but we see it a lot, brands that are just solely focused on influencer. We're launching on influencer. That's all we're doing. We're going to win. We're going to crush it. And then they spend their budget and get no sales. Is like, what other versions of that have you seen in your time and, over the course of say a year? What does that cost a brand if you're focusing on the wrong thing?
Yeah, I think I've seen it so many times where it's, yes, they hear about some market study of another brand did this and it worked. They hired this macro influencer and 10x sales, or they have a celebrity endorsement and it did this. I think too easily we get caught up in thinking, what works for another brand will work for us, right? And I think that's the wrong way to think. I think you should always understand your consumers and honor your customers that are already giving you feedback. We've said this a million times, but really just use that feedback the right way before you go and think we should do it because other people, it's worked for other brands, even in the same space. I almost say, if your competitor is doing something, that's almost reason not to do it, right? To set yourself apart,
Yeah.
just because they're hiring these, I keep using influencers. That's the easiest one because it's first place that people will spend a lot of money and not get the return there. But if your competitor is spending a lot of money in a certain space, you almost always assume that makes the most sense to do the same thing, and that's just not. You could spend all of your budget chasing after what competitors are doing well instead of just doing what you uniquely can do well that they can't. I almost even say, like, talk about reviews. If you want to differentiate yourself, go and look at the 1-star reviews of your competitors, and that's right where you should live and you should do things well, right?
Yeah.
What are they not able to do well because they're so big, they have such a big product line, or they're moving too fast, or they're focused on too many things? What can you do truly well for those customers that are disappointed in what they got? That's a great place to start. Let's solve that problem, and you'll gain those customers and they'll be lifetime loyalists because they'll be happy to have a solution.
Yeah. And I think you are absolutely spot on there with what works for your competitor is not going to work for you. And I think there's two main reasons behind that. Like if I'm going to launch a new soda brand and I just go and copy what Olipop's doing today, it's not going to work because they're advanced, they have brand recognition, I don't. So you're at different brand stages. So that as a strategy is totally flawed. The other thing is time when you launch matters because the technology and the DTC paid media world changes so rapidly that even
Yes.
if you followed Olipop's launch playbook from A to where they are now
Yes.
verbatim, it won't work because it's a different point in time. The strategies won't work because the technologies evolve, consumer behaviors evolve, which is why that like brand specific, time specific strategy is so important to getting this right. Going all the way back to the start of our conversation is
Yeah.
strategy first, execution second. And yeah, and don't copycat. Like copycat brands, we tend to shy away from, because when we ask them what's your like clear differentiation versus the incumbent player that's there, sometimes they
Yeah.
say, well, it's better packaging. So, well, that's not a reason for someone to buy from you instead of them. So I think, yeah, focus is just so key there. It's amazing how easy it is to get that wrong and burn your capital before you've even got to a point where you're profitable.
Yeah, I mean, talk about brand positioning. If you could take your website and swap out a competitor's logo for your own, you don't have a position,
Yeah,
right? Like, and then them not know a difference. You have to be different in order to stand out. And what people are going to love you for is what is the things that make you different, not because you are just like another brand. That then you're only competing on price, right? Or access or something else, things that aren't going to serve you long term. What's going to serve you long term is really being different and standing out in ways that matter to your customers.
yeah. Is there something that you see or have experienced like founders often put off? Like, what's the thing that people postpone that they really shouldn't? And like the real world examples, like going to the dentist. But in the D2C world, what are people not doing that they really should be? Probably because it's not fun.
Um, I've actually seen, this is funny because you think this wouldn't be the case, but I've seen a lot of founders not truly understand what their margins are, like by
Yeah,
channel, right? So they
yeah,
probably understand their product, right, and like the literal cost of goods, but what they don't truly understand is if where they're selling it matters, to the bottom line, because in that can happen really quickly. By the way, it can get out of line really quickly, especially if you're on Shopify, but then you're on other markets from there.
yeah,
Really quickly, all those little fees, all the things that that ding you can add up, and then you're just degrading your margins to the point of not making profitability. Now you're selling your product in a place, and then you won't really know until you kind of flush out your financials at the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year, that it's happening. It's really important to stay on top of that and understand like where you're making your profit from, and ensure that you're in the right channels for that reason.
yeah. Financial discipline. And if you don't know and that's not your thing because you're a product person, that's fine. But bring
Yeah.
in people early to look at your financials to make sure your margins are going to support the business. I think understanding your financials in the DTC world is super critical, because even it comes down, agencies that are talking about ROAS as if it's like profit. And it's like, guys, there's a cost of goods, there's a shipping cost, there's a
Yeah.
paid media cost, and usually there's a media buyer or agency cost, which is usually conveniently left out of that equation. So understanding just, those P&L type metrics, super important.
Agree.
All right, let's jump into some like real quick rapid fire questions. This is going to be really interesting and fun. So you have to
Sure.
give me like a real quick, short, sharp answer for each of these.
Okay.
Um, yeah, this will be good. So, niche down or go broad?
Niche down always.
Fix retention or acquire more customers first?
Fixed retention always. I think retention is the thing that will build you. You can always buy more customers and you go broke doing it.
Yep. Hire a generalist or a specialist?
Specialist always, especially when you're starting out and growing, but almost always, I think you have to know what the person is going to do for you in order for them to do it well.
Would you do one channel really well or three channels mediocre?
One channel done well all the time. You can build an entire successful business on one channel done well.
Here's a spicy one for you. I don't know how I'd answer this. Data or gut instinct?
Ooh, I consider myself data driven, but I'm gonna say gut instinct because you know what's happening in your gut.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. 100%. Would you raise price or increase volume?
So I would raise price because you really, if the product matches the value, there's option to raise the price there. Like it's always better to raise that price and make sure you are only selling it to customers who see the value in it rather than just get big and keep margins low.
Yep. Agency, in-house or fractional?
So I would say agency, and I would say for specialized execution. So you're hiring an agency specifically for something that you know that you need.
Nice. DTC only or at wholesale?
I'm a DTC first person. I think wholesale is a distribution play as a business overall. It's not a strategy, especially when you're starting out. D2C first, only that's that first party data. It's the relationship with the customer. It's how you're going to really build a great business.
When do you know when a strategy isn't working?
So you know a strategy isn't working if there's true, honest effort. I mean, I'm giving it a timeline of like 90 days, and there's no improvement on your key metrics, and you have to really know what those key metrics are and and watching them closely to know if it's working. But if you identify those right key metrics and nothing's moving after 90 days of effort, there's a problem there.
What's overrated in DTC right now?
I think like LinkedIn mass AI generated posts about how they're the expert in this or that, and you can tell it's generated by AI. It's nobody, no.
It's cringe.
It's so cringe, and you can just spot it from a mile away. Anybody who's in the D2C space knows and can spot AI from a mile away. And so using AI in a not like you have to use AI, we all are using it, but to replace the humanness that should be your own voice, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you still need this human filter. And I think that's going to actually become the valuable currency going forward. AI is going to be able to do more things for DTC brands. But until we get to a level of incredibly competent AGI, which I think is a way away, having a human actually check stuff before it goes out the door and having a human interpret even analysis from AI is just so critical. If you just blindly listen to AI, yeah, it's not good. And you and I test these tools a lot. There's a lot of AI marketing tools that get shoved down our throat. Everyone waves a flag. Hey, this is the best thing ever. We always research it because if it's going to provide value to brands, we want to recommend it. It's got its place, but human interaction and like your gut as well, as you said earlier, so important. Some closing high value founder advice. So these are the questions that I love. So if you were an advisor to a founder that's doing, let's say, 400,000 a year and has been stuck there for 18 months, 2 years, they're stuck at this 400K annual plateau, what would be the generalist advice you give them?
So I'd start with their P&L probably. I'm just understanding like where they're spending and what's not returning for them, like where their margins really truly are, like where they're actually making profit. Find the leaks because there are leaks if you're not growing. Same thing with funnel. Like where in the funnel are you leaking? Like is it an awareness issue? Is it a conversion issue? You'll know if it's a conversion issue, by the way. That's the easiest thing to spot because it's at a low number. You're getting people to the site and it's a low number. So I would start with ensuring that the people who come to your website are converting, right? So you've got them there, they're converting. That's the easiest thing to address first. It's hard to do, right? But it's the easiest thing to identify as the problem. And then if that's not the problem, then just kind of search beyond there.
Yeah, gotcha. Good advice. What's the one conversation founders need to have with themselves before they can truly grow?
Who am I here to serve, and am I serving them well? So, are you building the business to truly solve a problem, fill a need? And if you can't say that, then you haven't connected the dots yet on why people are buying your products, and it'll be harder to scale if you don't truly understand that.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. What does a brand look like at $1 million in annual revenue that's built well and built the right way versus the hard way?
So I think that revenue built the right way comes from systems that are in place that don't require effort from even a founder, right? Like it's a system that you've created that's repeatable and it's working, and then you can strategize further growth. I think the hard way is like hustle everything, do everything yourself as a founder, trust no one, right? Like that's a really hard way and it's not scalable and growable. So I think if you're building something at a great number, like $1 million, but it's built the hard way, you're not going to scale beyond that. So you get really clear on what you need to outsource or what you need to hire for, get specialists to do for you, and build systems that create repeatable growth rather than having you to, let's say, like output everything in order to get it out the door.
Yeah. What do you wish founders knew before they come to you, either as a consultant, as an agency? What's the one thing
So
that's most commonly missing?
So I almost think that they don't truly understand their numbers, like where their profits coming from, what's working, what channels are working, and where they're making that revenue from. Like I think it's so funny how you can think that you know your numbers, like vanity metrics can get you so far, but when you really look under the hood, like are your customers buying again in 90 days, or when that repeat purchase rate, why are they not coming back to you, like really like understand what's happening and what that data looks like. What's your repeat purchase rate? What is your true LTV? What is your true CAC? Like some people don't completely understand that by channel of where they're spending, and I think that not knowing those numbers means that you'll just be informed the wrong way. You'll be making the wrong decisions. You really need to understand the numbers.
Yeah, awesome. And what's your like closing question here for you? What's like one thing that founders can do this week to move the needle? Like, what are you seeing that's current, that's moving?
So I'm going to go back to the customer thing. I think if you can just truly understand what like, gather all the quantifiable quality and the quantity of data, and really understand your customers. Like, do a cloud of all of the words that in your customer service
Yeah.
channel that your customers are saying back to you, good, bad, indifferent. What words are they using? Go on social media and understand, like, what are they saying to us? That is the best, most impactful thing, because it will inform what's working, what's not, and what you should be paying attention to, and unlock for growth.
Yeah, amazing advice. And here's the thing you need to now go and do if you're watching this. It is go and download all your 1-star reviews from whatever review platform you're using, get it into a CSV. Drop that into Claude, get it to process it and summarize it. Now get Claude to go and have a look on Reddit and see what people are saying about your brand, consolidate that back down, and then create a prompt as to how can this improve my business? This is what I do. These are my products. This is my website. That should take you no more than 15 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can do that this week. If you haven't done that already, excellent advice. It will move the needle. Jennifer, thank you for your time today. Appreciate you. Incredible insights. We'll do this again probably next month, I would say.
Yeah.
So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.